Welcome back to the Definitive Insurance Podcast. My name is Savannah Abney, and today I have two of our amazing insurance experts with me, Nicole Dean and Alyssa Wilcox. Today we are talking about all things homeowners insurance. So if you're a homeowner or want to be one and want to better understand how to protect your investment, this episode is for you. We're going to hop right in. And Nicole, the first question I have, I'm going to direct to you. And this is probably the number one question everybody wants to know because everybody wants to know how to save money on everything in life. But what are the best ways to save on your homeowner's insurance policy?
So the main thing that I think is important is to shop around. Like when your policy comes up for renewal, make sure that you are getting multiple quotes from multiple carriers. That it is really important to work with a broker as well too, because I feel like they can get you multiple quotes from multiple different carriers. So you can kind of find what really suits your needs. Also making sure that you're carrying the coverages, like just because it's the cheapest policy doesn't mean it's the best value. Like your home is your biggest asset. So you want to make sure that you're covering your home adequately while getting the best, right? The best premium. You also can look at bundling your coverages if you have multiple policies with the same carrier. That can save you money in the long term. And then there are other things you can do, like taking a look at maybe raising your deductible if that's something that financially you think you can manage if there was a claim. Again, so it kind of just goes back to working with a licensed agent that's knowledgeable and just can make sure you're getting the best rate with the best coverages.
Making sure that you are doing the upgrades to your home, doing proper care and maintenance of your home, because we're seeing more and more carriers are requiring that you have certain electrical systems in your home, and doing those improvements can help mitigate the risk of claims. So being proactive in that regard is very important.
I think in general, we always talk about whatever kind of insurance it is, shopping around is just like a basic, like important kind of factor. But, speaking to the value more of working with a broker, if you're not working with a broker who has a lot of carrier relationships, it's now on you to go and get quotes
Mhm.
from all these different people, which is a lot more work on the homeowner or the individual. So can you speak a little bit to that, like why there's so much value, even just like the time savings that I mean, yes, the expertise, but like the amount of like legwork you have to do if you are doing this all on your own.
I'm sure Nicole can tell you how long it takes to get a homeowner's policy, because it does. She has to go and enter the information in multiple carriers, and it is very time consuming. And she is an expert and she knows where to go, so she kind of saved time in that regard. But it's time consuming.
It is, and ultimately, like if you're doing it on your own and maybe don't have a complete understanding of the coverages that are available and like what you should be covering, you could ultimately end up being woefully underinsured. And unfortunately, that is something that we're seeing happen, especially with like the LA fires and stuff. A lot of these people just didn't have adequate coverage, and now their home's gone and they don't have what they need to be able to rebuild. So it's really
Yeah.
important to make sure that you're carrying the right coverages.
Let me ask you this. What can drive up premiums without a homeowner realizing it? So there's probably some things that are pretty obvious if you don't have, certain upgrades are done or you're not doing certain things. But what are some things that are more like sneaky that you don't realize could potentially be increasing your premium?
I think the biggest thing is just inflation, right? Costs are going up across the board. The cost of materials are going up, the cost of labor, the cost of insurance, which, has a trickle down effect because you're dealing with contractors who have to insure their employees. So all of that is definitely hitting the cost of insurance as well as the cost to rebuild. And so one thing folks may not realize is that each year as you renew, your carrier should anyway a reevaluation of the cost to rebuild your home. Oftentimes they will increase the cost. The cost will typically increase because of this inflation and the cost, the increasing cost for materials and labor. As you're insuring a higher value home, your premium will increase. But then, of course, things like natural disasters are definitely coming into play. California, especially, is being hit with large fires, like Nicole mentioned, the LA fires being the most recent. Those impact the cost of insurance because it's a higher risk, and carriers are going to need to offset that higher risk that they're faced with. And so, with that too, a lot lot of insurers are pulling out of the market.
Mhm.
So what we're seeing is fewer carriers, fewer options, and that is also driving up the price. So we're in a hard market. Hopefully we'll see some legislation and other things from state levels that will help support the industry. But it's just a lot of things can factor in. I think
Nicole, what's the biggest mistake you see homeowners make around insurance? You kind of started to allude to being underinsured. That's the main thing, or if there's maybe some other pieces as well.
There's a couple, but I think the underestimating the replacement costs for your home, like if you're rebuilding it, especially if you're doing like your own shopping, which is great. If you understand it and can do it, go for it. But if you're looking at like the original value of your home and you're not taking account into what it's actually going to cost to rebuild it, or if you've done any upgrades or anything like that, that really has to be taken into effect, and making sure that your coverage is being adjusted, as Alyssa mentioned, each time it comes up for renewal, that you're taking into account that the additional costs, the additional home value that, a piece of lumber doesn't cost is less as it used to now, especially with inflation and everything. So just, it's really important to make sure that you're taking that into account every year and that you're adjusting for those things.
I think it's interesting too, because a lot of times I don't think people think about, for instance, if you gutted your entire house and you renovated the entire thing, obviously that would like trigger, okay, we need to like, tell our insurance broker we did all these things. Clearly the value is different now. We've made all these investments. But it's the smaller things I think people don't think about sometimes. Like we replaced our countertops and we changed out some cabinetry. Well, that still changed the value. Or yeah, we ripped out all of our carpet and put in hardwood. Well, that really changed it, but you don't necessarily think about, oh, it's just flooring, but it does change things significantly. And if you had to rebuild, all of that is going to be far more expensive,
Mhm.
especially in the next couple of years when you just did something brand new. It's even smaller changes that you don't necessarily think about that should trigger a response to go, okay, I need to let my broker know about that.
There's other things too, like if you have exclusions on your policy, like for pets or things like that, and you're not taking that into account. Also, a lot of people think that things like earthquake and flood are covered under their policies, and they're not. Like I just saw an article this morning where 13,000 people in Wisconsin were hit with flood, and none of them had flood damage because it's not a standard on your typical policy. And if you're not in a flood area, then you don't carry it. And so you're basically just lost your business biggest asset that you've been putting all your money into for years, decades, and it's just gone. So it's really important to make sure you're working with a knowledgeable agent that can help you make sure that you're carrying adequate coverage and that you're accounting for all of these things.
Last question for you, Alyssa. I'll throw this one to you. What kind of trends do you think we're going to see in homeowners insurance over the next few years?
Unfortunately, I think we are going to see a lot of increased premiums, that the inflation we talked about. Unfortunately, the economy is not getting better. We're going to continue to see those increased costs across the board. We're also going to see more carriers, I think, unfortunately, pulling out of certain areas. I've talked to a lot of homeowners who get a notice from their carrier and it's like, we're going to non-renew you unless you do X, Y, and Z. So they're looking at roofing. I think a big thing is actually the plants and the landscaping that you have around your home. They want a 5-foot defensible area. So if you have bushes along your house, a tree that's growing up close, they can have you either remove it or get non-renewed. And some folks are even saying that fences are being considered as part of the structure. So making sure that you are being proactive in being fire safe and taking precautions to create defensible space around your home. But there are some good things happening too. There's more risk assessment available. I think we are starting to see more Firewise communities. The hope is that community outreach and that community proactiveness will start to trickle down to the carriers. I know that our partner, Panorama Insurance, they're proposing some legislation to help improve the political environment for insurance, doing things to make rate increases more readily available for carriers. And obviously, we don't want to encourage rate increases, but because of inflation, we need to have those so that carriers can still make some money while protecting our homes, and the hope is that an improved environment will help, attract new carriers so that we can kind of get out of this tough spot that we're in. Another thing we're seeing is AI is coming into the world of insurance. Carriers are starting to integrate these tools in the underwriting process. So we're not quite sure what that's going to look like. We all have our opinions about AI, and so we'll just see how that unfolds. But I guess the hope is that AI could maybe take the bias out of the underwriting process. So we'll see what the tool, what it brings.
Thank you both so much for your insights. Always appreciate it every single month. If you liked this episode of the Affinity Insurance Podcast, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more episodes, and we'll see you next month.